I'm Katie Couric. Tonight, new tactics by Iraqi insurgents. Chlorine gas may be the new weapon of choice. After repeated attacks, U.S. troops find canisters of the chemical in a raid on a suspected weapons factory. We've been focusing on food safety. Now the government is about to roll out an entire new system for making sure processed meats are not tainted. The latest gizmo in airport security. Is it getting just a little too personal?
This is the CBS Evening News with Katie Couric.
Hello, everyone. The U.S. military in Iraq is warning tonight that insurgents are trying new tactics to try to spread fear. Bombs with chlorine gas have killed as many as 11 people this week. And today, U.S. troops found canisters of chlorine when they raided a suspected weapons factory west of Baghdad. Also today, the U.S. military said American forces killed at least 12 insurgents in a 6-hour clash in the city of Ramadi. And U.S. forces looking for insurgents shooting down American helicopters detained 2 members of a militant cell. Lara Logan in Baghdad tonight has the latest on the enemy's changing tactics.
This is the changing face of war in Iraq as a new weapon of terror is unleashed here. Crude chemical bombs that explode poisonous chlorine gas into the air, burning the eyes and lungs of victims too small even to understand what's happened. A chilling turn in tactics that's left survivors bewildered and in pain. 3 so-called dirty bombs detonated here in less than a month, like this one north of Baghdad Tuesday, where a truck packed with chlorine and explosives disintegrated into scraps of metal and toxic fumes.
When the U.S. is surging, the insurgents are coming back with their own innovation, showing they're not going to go anywhere.
Experts in propaganda, they were quick to capitalize on the new threat by releasing this video on a jihadi website. It shows their fighters wearing gas masks and claims they're assembling chemical warheads. The U.S. military here is fighting back. Today they raided a large bomb-making factory near Fallujah, where they say they uncovered 3 vehicle bombs, including a truck, that were being assembled with about 65 propane tanks of different chemicals. The problem is these aren't that hard to make, using ordinary chemicals, which, like chlorine, are easily accessible. So far, 16 people have been killed, but that number could increase as this new tactic is improved. And it's not the only tactical improvement causing the U.S. military concern right now. In less than 2 months this year, 8 American helicopters have been shot down, compared to 5 in the whole of last year.
We're not only seeing a change in tactics, but we're seeing a change in the level of complexity of those tactics. More things are coordinated, more things seem to have more moving parts.
That gives the insurgents greater capability against the superior weapons of the U.S., something commanders here say now makes this an even tougher enemy to fight. Lara Logan, CBS News, Baghdad.
Meanwhile, 2 accusations of rape involving Iraqi security forces are dumping more fuel on the already explosive situation there. Both of the alleged victims are Sunni and claim they were raped by Shiite policemen. Prime Minister Maliki's government has cleared the accused, and today al-Qaeda in Iraq vowed revenge. Now turning to concerns over Iran's nuclear program. Hours after a UN watchdog group issued a highly critical update on the program, the U.S. and other Security Council members said tonight they'll meet Monday to draft more sanctions. Our chief White House correspondent Jim Axelrod has more. Jim, this latest development is making a tense situation even worse.
Yeah, that's right, Katie. It's not just that Iran is ignoring a UN ultimatum to stop enriching uranium. It's that this report says Iran's actually expanding its enrichment program, and that's a program that could eventually produce nuclear weapons. The IAEA says Iran now has hundreds of devices called centrifuges set up that spin uranium into nuclear fuel, with plans to have thousands more ready by May.
I think for us it's very clear that the intention is not just to develop civilian nuclear power, but to use this as a cover for a nuclear weapons program.
So now it's back to the UN Security Council, where tougher sanctions are no sure thing. Both Russia and China could block them. The White House is now going after Iran another way, pressuring allies to isolate Iran economically.
A number of major European banks have decided to curtail their operations with Iran, and Iran is beginning to feel the pinch.
Those 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council that'll meet to come up with new sanctions include 2 countries, Russia and China, that are already doing plenty of business with Iran. So tougher sanctions than those already in place are unlikely. Katie?
Jim Axelrod at the White House tonight. Jim, thank you. Last week in a special series, we looked at the safety of the food we eat. Well, today the government announced the first major overhaul of the food safety system in a decade. And it's starting with meat processing plants, but it's stepping up inspections at only a fraction of them, considering that some 76 million people get food poisoning every year and 5,000 of them die. Does the plan go far enough to ensure your food is safe enough to eat? Here's Wyatt Andrews.
The proposal would change the way the nation's favorite meat gets inspected. Processed meats like hamburgers, hot dogs, deli cuts, and sandwich meat. The idea beginning in April is to have USDA inspectors focus on the processing plants that have the worst food safety records while spending less time at plants that pose little or no risk.
This is about taking our inspectors and putting them in a position to do the most good to protect the public's health.
Both the meat industry and consumer groups immediately attack the idea, with critics pointing out the USDA usually can't trace which processed meats actually make people sick, which means inspectors might not be targeting the right plants. The biggest meat lobby said the hasty rollout of this program could unnecessarily jeopardize consumer confidence. The Consumer Federation called the USDA proposal a fraud. The department, it said, has no meaningful scientific data to rank product risk. Food safety expert Caroline Smith DeWall calls it a potentially good idea in need of facts.
USDA is pushing forward with a proposal where the design is reasonable, but they really don't have all the data they need to make the design work.
We have plenty of data.
The nation's top meat inspector says public safety can't wait for perfect data. Everyone, he says, knows which germs make people sick: E. coli, Salmonella, Listeria, and Campylobacter, and his inspectors will be going after the worst offenders.
You know which plant failed the Salmonella test. We know which plants failed their Listeria. We know which plants had recalls. That data is all readily available.
This new system is going to start small, and I mean very small, 250 out of 5,000 plants. So despite the USDA's expressions of confidence, this is going to begin as a tiny experiment. Katie?
And Wyatt, you reported that USDA inspectors will be targeting all those germs that make people sick. What does that mean exactly?
You know, Katie, that's actually the oddest part of this announcement. These inspectors will go to these worst plants, but one thing they won't be doing is more microbial inspections for the germs that make people sick. A lot of critics say that is the heart of the problem.
All right, Wyatt Andrews in windy Washington. Thanks, Wyatt. From food safety, we go now to airport security, and we begin with an update. Last month, Chief Investigative Correspondent Armin Katayan exposed a big hole in the security net. While airline passengers and crews must go through a security screening, Armin reported nearly 700,000 airport employees do not. Now, in the wake of that report, CBS News has learned the TSA will start random screenings of employees at the Atlanta airport on Monday. We expect the program to be implemented at all 452 airports nationwide. Meanwhile, a new kind of airport security screening debuts tomorrow in Phoenix. As Bob Orr shows us, this one gets very personal, and that's stirring up a lot of controversy.
It's called a backscatter X-ray. Critics call it a digital strip search. Here's how it works. A passenger stands in front of a large scanner. X-rays penetrate clothing but bounce off the traveler's body, generating a silhouette-like image that looks like this.
Here, down in the passenger's sock, you can see what's been concealed here is a ceramic knife.
Joe Rice, whose company makes the backscatter machine, says it's key to finding weapons and objects that metal detectors and traditional X-rays miss.
It has the capability to find all types of weapons, not only guns or knives, but also explosive devices or even non-metallic weapons.
But backscatter X-rays have been highly controversial. Earlier versions were explicitly revealing, capturing pictures in which people appeared nearly naked. The new backscatter, which will be tried out in Phoenix, is not nearly that graphic. Its software adds privacy filters. And security officials stress the images will not be saved. Passengers we spoke with today in Phoenix weren't worried.
I like it. I feel safer if I knew that was there.
It's pretty impressive that it just shows the outline of the body versus showing any private parts.
But privacy advocates are still outraged.
We're not convinced that it's necessary. We're not convinced that it's effective, and we think the privacy risk is serious and hasn't been fully explained to the public.
At least at the outset, backscatter X-rays will be voluntary. Most passengers will pass right by them. And those who are pulled out of line for extra screening can choose backscatter or a traditional pat-down. Security officials say backscatter strikes a fair balance between privacy and security. And the technology will eventually spread to more airports. But critics ask, how far will the government go to make us safer? Bob Orr, CBS News, Washington.
We've got much more news ahead. Coming up next, the American spirit. Tonight, how a self-described computer geek is opening new worlds of words to the blind. CBS News in Focus. Tonight, a man who's helping the blind expand their world through books. There are as many as 10 million people in this country who are blind or legally blind, and that can turn the daily things we take for granted into a real challenge. Enter Jim Fruchterman, a computer whiz who embodies the American spirit.
Silicon Valley, where dreams turn into household names and millionaires are minted by the bucketful.
Is there a place for you in a world like this?
Jim Fruchterman has been an entrepreneur here for over 20 years. He embraces the high-tech culture.
It is a badge of honor to be a geek. I mean, you know, geeks love technology for its own sake, and we like to solve problems. This is Bookshare.org.
And it's solving problems and improving lives, not lucrative stock options, that drives this geek. His startup is a nonprofit. He's what's called a social entrepreneur.
This is the equivalent of a medium-sized bookstore.
His major product, Bookshare.org, is an online library for the blind. Around the country, thousands of volunteers have scanned over 30,000 titles. Everything from Proust to Harry Potter to the latest bestseller.
How about a book I'm reading now, Kite Runner?
Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini.
Yes.
It's all legal thanks to a provision of copyright law that allows the disabled to access content they couldn't get in its original form. Once the books are scanned, a computer converts them into either Braille.
It says, there is no magic formula.
Or audio.
What's the corporate goal here?
Corporate goal is to make the biggest impact on people in need around the world.
Brian Miller of Alexandria, Virginia, is completely blind.
The 9th annual Washington, D.C. Independent.
Hey, I didn't know about that.
He's one of more than 6,000 subscribers to Bookshare. In addition to books, he downloads some of the 150 newspapers available each morning.
So the New York Times is downloaded.
So Brian can make his D.C. commute like everyone else.
It takes minutes. You go on the website, you download it, it's in your pocket, and you're reading it on your way to work. You know, the same way that somebody who's grabbing the New York Times or the Washington Post out of the machine. You know, that's bringing you into the community.
Change your life, or is that too strong?
No, to have that kind of immediate access to information is life-changing.
I like being able to just get on there and download the latest novel.
Brian's wife, Priscilla McKinley, is also blind.
I think it's really cool that my siblings can recommend books to me now, and I can go and I can read them and I can call and say, hey, I read this.
It's that sort of, I can do these things that makes me feel good that we've created a way that they can do those things without needing help.
Don't just buy fish, but teach fishermen.
Exactly. We're not going to go out there and read books to blind people. We're going to give them a tool so they can download the books and read them themselves. A lot of my friends didn't get this nonprofit thing.
Fruchterman recently got a MacArthur Genius Award. He's now trying to convince the next generation of high-tech entrepreneurs to be socially conscious.
How do you measure success?
I measure success on how many people we've helped with our technology. That's our goal, is to make sure technology really serves the bigger social issues rather than just making a buck. And now,
in a high-tech world consumed by profits, Jim Fruchterman's investing in people. He's doing well and doing good. Byron Pitts, CBS News, Palo Alto, California.
Good for him. Next week in the American Spirit, you'll meet a developer with a unique plan for saving rundown neighborhoods. We'd also like to hear from you. If you know someone who exemplifies the American Spirit, go to our website at cbsnews.com, click on American Spirit, and let us know. From the American Spirit to an American hero. The mother of a soldier killed in Iraq wrote to us the other day, "I have but one wish," Amy Mix said, "that my son Joseph not be forgotten." So with that in mind, CBS News honors American heroes. Joe Mix, remembered as a happy guy who collected sports memorabilia, and in school, the smart one who tutored other kids. An Eagle Scout, he joined the Army because he wanted to make a difference. While serving in Germany, he met and married Ramona, and they were planning to start a family when Mix was killed in Iraq by a roadside bomb. Well, you cannot avoid it. Every time you check the cable channels, there it is, the Anna Nicole Smith case, a 24-hour-a-day soap opera. Today's finale, for now, was absolutely bizarre. Here's Kelly Kobiea.
And you object to the identity of the father?
I object
Fine.
to everything.
So,
There weren't enough rings for the circus in this Florida courtroom.
how do I know who you are? It was just a big
18
bluff,
lawyers
but
representing 3 people in a fight for the body of former stripper and Playboy playmate Anna Nicole Smith. On the final day, Smith appeared on video painted like a clown. One of the lawyers fainted, and Judge Larry Seidlin cried as he asked those in the courtroom to please maintain their dignity.
I hope when it's read, we're dignified and we keep our cool.
He wants to be Hamlet in a robe. The only problem is Hamlet actually made a decision.
Judge Seidlin did not rule in favor of any of the 3 people who came looking for their version of justice, not Smith's ex-boyfriend, her current companion, or her mother. Instead, he left it to another lawyer appointed by him to be the guardian for Smith's 5-month-old daughter.
And I hope to God you guys give the kid the right shot.
So after 4 days of theatrics in the courtroom, the fighting parties figured it out for themselves behind closed doors in less than half an hour. Smith will be buried in the Bahamas, guaranteeing the tabloid shows and cable networks another few days of wall-to-wall coverage. As for his future, Judge Seidlin might want to give Lance Ito a call. Kelly Kobiea, CBS News, Fort Lauderdale.
That's the CBS Evening News. I'm Katie Couric. Good night.